That's served up today. How we doing, everybody? It's your guy Wardy here, and we're back at it with our latest New York Metropolitan post-game show, presented by our amazing sponsors at SeatGeek that have you covered for all of your ticketing needs. Make sure you guys utilize our promo code WARDY10, that is WARDY10, link down below. That way you too get 10% off your next ticket purchase. And as I've been telling you guys over the past calendar week, I've said verbatim, do not waste your dollars on these Mets. Well, folks, fast forward all these days later, you win back-to-back games, and we're changing the narrative, and it's time to invest in the Mets. That's how this works here. And the 162, if the Mets start to show up, then you as a fan have every right in the world to start to show up again at Citi Field for this Mets team, because the Mets came out in game one of a 3-game set against the San Diego Padres, and they balled out. It was batting practice against the former Yankee reliever turned starter, and no, his name is not Clay Holmes. We're talking about Michael Cain, returning from his knee injury not all that long ago. How is he going to fare leading in this matchup? I was relayed heading into this one by people on the Padres side of things telling me that the Mets could take advantage of this, and they most certainly did. Meatballs galore, left, right, and center. Everybody and their mother felt like that they had a hit for the Mets in the first inning, giving them that early multi-run lead. This was the debut, even though technically we saw this in the first half there in the Kansas City Royals series right before we got to the All-Star break. Clay Holmes and Manaea utilizing a back-to-back piggyback situation. A couple months ago, we saw that work to a degree with Manaea as he was ramping himself back up from injury. Now that Sean's been batting practice as a starter over the past month and a half, David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza finally made the rational decision to move him into the bullpen. This time to piggyback after Clay Holmes gives you 4 or 5 solid innings. And that is exactly what happened in this one, everybody. So in tonight's post-game show, not only are we going to break down what was a big W for this Mets team, but in the key context of Clay Holmes, Manaea. What do these guys have in common today? What they have in common is outside of giving up some solo bombs, they came to play, and they stepped up massively for this Mets team. Look at the combined walks between Manaea and Holmes today, everybody. We're going to give them a collective grade today, not just one singular grade, because I loved what I saw from both of them. If you take away the home runs galore that they gave up some meatballs for some solo shots, they had it coming, and they were looking great. Clay Holmes goes 4 solid innings. Manaea goes 5 brilliant innings for you, and the commonality is not just those solo bombs, but it's the lack of walks given up. What has been the biggest bugaboo with these Mets stars this season? If it is not the home run ball, it's most certainly their walk rates, and they did a tremendous job in today's outing that we're going to break down extensively here in a second, and what they did right to make sure that they were putting themselves the best foot forward here for this Mets team, and for an offense that simply came to play big time start to finish. As you guys can see, this is how the Mets lineup ended today. Francisco Lindor had his wife do the pregame, what we saw in the national anthem with their own violin. So cool, so multi-talented. The entire Lindor family just gets better by the second. There was himself with his son, his 2 daughters, watching over, appreciating Lindor's wife and everything that she did. I thought that was really cool. And of course, because Lindor's wife was performing pregame, Lindor was most certainly going to perform in-game. He had himself a big bomb to write, as was the case for the Polar Bear, as was the case with Brett Bonds, as was the case with, yes, believe it or not, Cedric Mullins hit a baseball out of the ballpark. His first home run at Citi Field, and he got all of that one. Batting practice on Michael Cain was the story of this matchup that we're going to break down in grave detail, everybody. But folks, hit that like and subscribe on your way, and we have a lot to talk about on this fine Tuesday evening between the Mets and the Padres. The Metsies stepped up, and they took down a Padres squad that, entering today's ballgame, mind you, had a solid 5 games up on this Mets team in the wild card. Now the Mets are just 4 games behind the Padres for that second wild card. We look at the Arizona Diamondbacks, the Cincinnati Reds, the San Francisco Giants, 3 teams nipping at the Mets' heels right now for that final wild card. If I'm not mistaken, the Reds are currently losing. I don't know the status of the Giants, and I do not know the status of the Arizona Diamondbacks, but I believe the Giants and the Diamondbacks are playing each other, so whoever loses is going to be hurt more than the other, obviously. Either way, the Reds, last time I saw, were losing by a couple runs to the St. Louis Cardinals. If anyone can confirm that, I would greatly appreciate that. We got Juliet gifting 5 memberships in the show. Thank you so much for that, Juliet. I greatly appreciate that. Javier, Scott, NY Committee, and Murdoch and MB Spartan, congratulations. You guys are now official members on the platform. All thanks to Juliet for her kindness and her generosity. If you guys do not know what that means when you become a member, what that means is you guys will get exclusive perks like our emojis that we have solely for our members. So you guys can check out different players. You get shout outs from yours truly every live show that we do, as well as an live stream every single month, a Q&A segment with yours truly, whatever Mets comments, questions, and concerns that you have that you want answered that maybe I don't otherwise get a chance to answer in our typical live shows. That is a great opportunity to do exactly that. Thank you guys so much for the support. I appreciate that. But as always, everybody, it is time that, you spam the W's in the live chat right here, right now. This was a big boy victory by the Mets today, and yes, they have played dreadful baseball for the majority of this summer, but the season is not over yet. They still got 10 or so games to be had this year, and they just got to take it game by game. They did that today. I love what I saw between Holmes and Manaea. Please give me more of that. I'm not asking for much. I just want competency from this Mets team. They just saved their bullpen a full day today, which is massive considering the fact that David Pearson's slotted to pitch tomorrow. Jonathan is slotted to pitch for that series finale, and there's a reality where Peterson doesn't provide length again, and Ton might not be able to get out of his own mess in the first couple innings again. So you want to make sure you have as much health and reliability from that bullpen that's been otherwise unreliable the past couple months. That was a huge step in the right direction. Eliminate the walks to increase the value of what Holmes and Manaea can give you in this one, in my humble opinion, supersedes what you got from this Mets offense. I love the bats, I love the standouts, I love everything in between, but the Mets needed some type of stability with their rotation, with their pitching, and they finally got it, and someone that is not named Noel McLean or Brandon Sproat, the rookie right-handers, everybody. So knowing that this was a big W, knowing that you guys are spamming those W's and hitting that like and subscribe on your way in is exactly why we got to let it rip, as we always do. After every big victory throughout the course of the 162, we got to let it rip with the one, the only, the official, with the lobster, with the rally lobster, if you know what we've been doing on the platform for a while. The one and only post-game jingle. Back-to-back games of post-game jingles. I feel spoiled. Let's go.
Postgame. Postgame. Calling all Met fans, come and join us now. Talking about this game and gonna break it down. It's Mets Postgame.
Shout out to my guys, Greg and Jordan, as always, with the official WardyNYM post-game jingle. If you don't know, now you know, and that is something that we do after every big victory throughout the course of the 162. It's corny, it's cheesy in all the right ways, and that little lobster is our rally lobster that we've been doing the past couple months now after every big victory, and that's not stopping anytime soon. The lobster lives on, which is why you guys are spamming that in the chat and with the emojis in the comments down below to our replay viewers. Thank you guys kindly for that. Again, thank you so much, everybody. We, I believe, are just 200 subs or so away now from our next short-term goal, that being in 35,000 subscribers, and that's a massive deal here. We have grown this platform to the largest independent Mets content platform, covering all things Mets every single day here on YouTube over the past 5.5 years, and that's thanks to you, the amazing viewers, to what we have seen, the millions of views over the past couple of years, as well as the thousands of subscribers. Help us get a 35K, everybody, because once we hit that next milestone, we're giving away a jersey of whatever player you currently want on the roster to one lucky subscriber. We've already given away 5 jerseys this season. I look forward to giving away a 6th as soon as we hit that milestone. Make sure you get involved, everybody. I'll keep you up to date on the community tab, as well as more updates on our video content and live stream content the days going forward once we hit that milestone, because we typically do it in a random live show on the platform approximately a week from the time that we officially hit that milestone. So be on the lookout. Thank you guys so much for smashing those buttons. Happy to have you all part of the community here. And before we break down this ball game, everybody, let me first get the roll call going to everyone watching live on a replay, but mainly to my live viewers especially, as I got to shout you out one by one. We got Rebecca in here, great member. I know that my camera's slightly out of focus, but that's okay. We got Ines in here, how we doing? We got Sanders, Truman Quinn, how we doing, baby? We got Michael Russo in the chat, Stephen Kelly, Ray Neal, and guys, do not hold back from telling me everything that you're feeling from this big victory. Your key takeaways, what you liked, what you didn't like, and everything else in between from this amazing 8-3 defeat of the San Diego Padres. Stephen Kelly, how we doing? Michael Russo, Russo in the chat. We got going up here, Murdoch, great member. Steve Lawn, great member and friend. Javier, how we doing, great member. Eric Roper, how we doing? Sean73, how we doing, baby? Rocket Man, Philly FU, love that. Pathetic, bro. If we're talking pathetic, I hope you're talking about not the Mets. Otherwise, you're being a schmuck, and that's okay, because if you're in hand in Philly, then that goes in hand with the Philly way. Truman, how we doing? Bob, how we doing? NY Committee, great member. Happy to have you in here. Going up the list even more. We got plenty of you guys. PB9, great member. PB, I will get back to you. Yes, I will make sure that you get the contact that you're looking for in regards to Steve. We'll make that happen. Give me 1 second as I get this camera focused, because of course I had to go out of focus on me. This is why wouldn't it do that as I'm trying to give you guys a roll call. God forbid things ran properly here on the WardyNYM platform. Give me 1 second, everybody. There we go. Sometimes it just needs a little Wardy ASMR. A little nice up and close Wardy to get it clicked in and locked and loaded. Jason, how we doing? We got our guys D-Mac, great member. Jojo, great member. How are you? Mr. Chicken, Ray Neal, Louis Reyes, how we doing in here? We got Mike O'Brien. We got Killa. We got Meatball. Love the names. Bob Peel. We got Omari in the chat. We got Moon Shadow, great member. Scott Sandler, great member. We got all you guys. Hit those buttons on your way in, everybody. We appreciate you. What's good, my guy? It's Blanco. How are you? We got Mario working from City Field in the chat. You know he's a beauty. We got all you guys. We got the dono from Jack says, why can't Alvarez catch a break? Unfortunately, because he's a ball magnet this season. In case you guys were wondering what Jack is referring to, the one standalone problem issue that we saw from tonight's victory wasn't what the Mets did, but rather what the Padres decided to do. A rookie right-hander making just his third career start decides to throw 100 miles per hour up and in on Francisco Alvarez right before the ball game ends. Why? Because we're not allowed to have nice things. That's why. Alvarez, who already we saw go down with a partially torn UCL in his thumb that requires surgery as soon as this year is done for him playing, as well as a broken left pinky in his hand from a hit-by pitch. Now Alvarez has to deal with taking 100 miles per hour square to the elbow that we saw right at the end of this ball game. He grimaced in heavy pain right away. The team looked like they were about to get on the field and do something about it. And that is the kind of moxie I need to see more from this Mets team. I hope that they have that going forward, because we can't, pardon my French, kiddos, but we can't take this shit. It's happened far too often. This Mets team led all baseball in hit-by pitches in 2022. They were not far behind in 2023. They've continued to get drilled left, right, and center all season long, every season, and yet they don't do anything with it. And I get it. If you retaliate right away, it's going to hurt your team more in the interim, more than likely, because you are then going to be the one to be penalized for it. Having said that, it is disgusting that Alvarez, again, a ball magnet, which has been the case all season, just cannot get out of his own way, unfortunately. Now, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll find out post-game. I'm sure he is okay, but we just need to make sure that is confirmed here before we wrap up the live show at some point. Now, folks, I gotta ask you first and foremost, before we break this all down, on a scale of 1 to 10, how encouraged were you with the Mets piggybacking of Clay Holmes and Sean Manaea today? I would love to hear your grade as to what you would give that on a scale of 1 to 10. I will share mine as we get on later on the show here. Obviously, it's going to be a good one after what we saw them do today. Jack with the donation. Also, Cyclones won the title. Yes, they did, for those that are unaware. And Jack, thank you for the reminder here. I was going to wait until we were done breaking down the ball game, but we could say it now. The Brooklyn Cyclones have won their title for their league. So congratulations to them on winning their championship there. That is fantastic news. The Cyclones, just like the Rumble Ponies, and like basically every Mets affiliate this year, have looked brilliant that we have seen. The Mets farm did wonders. I have never seen a Mets farm from Port St. Lucie up to AAA Syracuse that all had winning seasons and had at least 2, if not 3 of those 4 teams being dominant in doing so. We're talking 30, 40 plus effing games above 500. That is how good, especially the Rumble Ponies and the Cyclones, looked all season long. Even with their continued promotions, they just continue to churn out great young talent, great young pitching, and that paved the way in the right direction for them. So congratulations again to all the Brooklyn Cyclones. I look forward to seeing the development of a lot of these young players heading into moving forward and beyond. I'm just so happy to see the dominance that we have seen in the minor leagues from the Mets' entire farm. It's not just really one. It's basically everybody down there has been doing a rock solid job. I'm loving the grades as well. Universals, what we're seeing at an 8 and 9 and a lot of 10s here in the chat, guys, understandably so, regarding the piggybacking that actually worked in the Mets' favor today. Mario with the $2 donation. Thank you, Mario. He says, not at work, but tomorrow working, and G3 as a fan. Love that, my guy. I hope you have an absolute blast. Thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate Alvin, great member of the chat. How we doing? We got all you guys 9 out of 10. Only negative were the gopher balls. And again, the solo shots weren't fun, but the fact that the Mets were not walking everybody and their mother, I thought was a very encouraging thing. And guys, speaking of encouragement, let's talk about what was so encouraging about this 8-3 victory for the Mets, because let's not forget what happened the last time the Mets and the Padres matched up this season. The Mets got curb stomped by this Padres team. They demolished them in more ways than one, going back to the Mets' previous series there in San Diego. Remember, everybody, the Mets split a series against the Dodgers in 4, but when they had to go to Petco Park, the winning ways simply did not come over. They just got curb stomped what felt like every single game there, and this is a Padres team that, as we know, has been scuffling a little bit. Their offense has been lackadaisical. It's been very Jekyll and Hyde the second half. Their pitching has been rock solid, but guys returning from injury like Michael Cain have yet to really establish themselves. So the Mets were able to take advantage of a Padres team and a Michael Cain that honestly was in similarity to Sean Manaea returning, Frankie Montas returning, who's not looking good returning. Even Kodai Senga falls in that category, obviously. All these guys, what do they have in common? Not looking good from returning to their latest injuries. So the Mets, knowing that they're getting more Meatball King today, were able to pounce and took full advantage, because in the first, we saw a nice 1-2-3 inning today for Clay Holmes. And the bottom of the first is where the Mets came to pounce. 4 consecutive hits for this Mets team. Francisco Lindor with a single. Juan Soto rocking the tight little braids. Love it. I don't know if you guys saw Soto's look today. I'll actually show it in the show too. Let me just see if I can pull it up real quick. Juan Soto was rocking a different hairdo. For the first time in his career, Juan Soto wasn't rocking just his normal hair out. That being that he had the nice little tight braids, similar to what we see a guy like Lindor do, and obviously Ronnie Mauricio. And interestingly enough, even though Ronnie hasn't had a tremendous impact on this Mets team this season, he's obviously had a positive influence, or at least, a good influence on Juan Soto, because Soto credits him for making that hairstyle, that decision. So let's go ahead and let me show you guys what Soto's rocking with right now, just in case any of you guys are curious and didn't see for it yourself. The Mets need to get some kind of vibe, some kind of aura going at Citi Field. Have a hairdo is what's going to help pave the way, then by all means, let's make it work, baby. Now let's go ahead and let me show you guys Jose Iglesias made his return to Citi Field today that we saw. He did not really play, but it was still cool to see him there. David Stern spoke to the media today as well, which we will touch on to a degree before we wrap up the show. We'll break down further in content tomorrow, so be on the lookout for it, everybody. But let me get to the Juan Soto. Here's the Juan Soto look for any of you guys that have interest. Then let's actually break down this first inning and all the great that came from it, because the first inning was a standout for the Mets today, no denying. They had some good offense, but the first inning was a great stepping stone. Look at that. Look at the nice dude from Juan. He's rocking him. He's got him nice and tight, and that clearly led to some early production today, because Juan Soto had himself a nice single that we saw right up the middle. So Lindor's on, Soto's on. Who's up next? That would, of course, be and the big guns, the remainder of this Mets line, because after we would see that happen, the polar bear and Pete Alonso pokes himself, this time a little bit of a bloopy opposite field single. Run does not come in to score, but the Mets load the bases with no outs there for, yes, you guessed it, what do we see, everybody? After Alonso gets on, Brandon Nimmo needs to step up with regards to scoring position. And he does! Nimmo steps up big time. He gets himself a nice little opposite field RBI poke. That makes it 1-0. Good, guys. And Mark Vientos did everything in his power to hurt the Mets rally today, but thankfully it wasn't enough. Marky V, who deserves endless credit for how good he has been on a daily, nightly basis for this Mets team, going back to the beginning of August. Remember, Vientos has 10 home runs and 25 RBIs in his past 27 games or so. He's looked really good with an OPS just under 1,000 to this point. Today, however, nothing looked good about Mark Vientos with his at-bats. For whatever reason, he just didn't have it today. I'm not going to give him much flack here, because he has been one of the most reliable batters for the Mets over the past north of 2 months now. But today, not so much. He actually grounds into a really bad double play that goes right back up the middle to Michael Cain. From Michael Cain goes home to get the out there. Then you get the double play to force him out there at home, out first as well. So a double play, the Mets unfortunately couldn't get more going there, or so we thought. Jeff McNeil, and I'm really proud to call this, guys. I don't call too much that happens during the game because I don't like to jinx it. But as soon as McNeil was stepping up to the plate. I looked around my families. We were all watching together in the living room for the first half of the ball game before I spend the second half editing it in my office area with my TV here that I'm watching currently. And I said, McNeil's getting himself easy at bases clearing single right here. No doubt in my mind. Kane doesn't have it. And I said, first pitch swinging and be on the look. What happens? First pitch swinging. It's even better than I could possibly imagine. It's not a single for McHits. No, we're going McDoubles here for Jeff as he pokes one down the first baseline. It stays fair. Gets in the corner. In comes a couple runners to give the Mets with 2 outs. A huge 2-run double for Jeff McNeil. Jeff McDoubles, as I love to label him. And just like that, the Mets are up by 3 early in this ball game. But it doesn't stop there because the Mets say to themselves, why stop at 3 when we can get to 5? That's what happens as Brett Bonds, baby, almost had it right. Brett Bonds, baby, as I love to call him, when everything's cooking right. Beatty, who's had such a good second half for the Mets, just being rock solid and consistent. More than anything, was that yet again. And for those that are unaware about Brett Beatty this year, his home versus away splits are drastic, and they are in favor of being at Citi Field. So it came as no surprise to me to see Beatty rip one. It's high, it's far, and it is gone. A 2-run shot for Brett the Hitman, his 17th home run of the season, everybody. And that gives the Mets a 5-0 lead all in the first inning there. 108 miles per hour off the bat, 416 feet. And all you're saying to yourself as a Mets fan, including myself, is probably as follows. What is Holmes and Manaea going to do? Are we going to get batting practice pitchers today that make this a tight ball game? Or are the Mets going to have themselves a fairly comfortable victory? And thankfully, by the grace of God, folks, the Mets got the latter today. Thank you so much, Steven, for the $2 for 2 pitcher tag teams. Oh, love it. Thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that. The tag team most certainly worked. That tandem, the duo, whatever you want to label it, got the job done. Hopefully, we see more of that moving forward. Because after Brett Beatty made it a 5-0 ball game, we head to the second inning where Gavin Sheets gets on with a leadoff walk, but then we see right away it's a double play for Ramon Laureano. Huge double play turn right away. Clay gets out of his own little mess initially. Jackson Merrill, who has not looked nearly as good in his sophomore year, dealing with some ailments and just more inconsistent. Jackson smacks one dead center, 14th home run of the year. That makes it a 4-run deficit there for San Diego. So a meatball given up early by Holmes. I'm saying to myself, okay, if we can just limit the damage, make sure he's not walking everybody in the mother, I'm still feeling good about this ball game. And that held true because he would get out of that inning then. We then head to the bottom of the second inning. And after Cedric Mullins flies out, Francisco Lindor on Roberto Clemente Day, rocking 21, just like Juan Soto and other Mets, which I thought was tremendous. Always a special time for the Mets to be celebrating Roberto Clemente Day. I think it was officially yesterday, getting into today, because they have the off day yesterday. Regardless, I love to see that. A very special time. If you guys do not know Roberto Clemente, please do your homework on him. He is not only one of the best players to ever grace Major League Baseball, but he was the ultimate professional both on and off the field, and a truly selfless human being. And Roberto Clemente's selflessness and what made him such a great character of an individual was ultimately in part his demise because of how he tragically passed. If you guys do not know the story of Roberto Clemente, please inform yourself. It's a great one. I was fortunate to first learn about Clemente back during my time in early middle school, 6th grade to be exact, because my 6th grade English teacher's husband was actually a teammate of Clemente's during their time on the Pirates together. As crazy as it is to say, it holds true. His last name was Killingsworth. If anyone wants to look him up and do the homework, you can track it. It's factual. And she actually used to host Roberto at her own home in my local area where I live in Pennsylvania, which is crazy. During the offseason, she would hang out with Roberto and his wife as well. And they would do not only get-togethers together because of, team-related things, but they would do things together just at their own leisure. And they had a really good relationship, which is what made losing Roberto that much harder for them on a personal note. But to learn about him and his greatness and the impact that he had, especially on the Latin community and today's game, and how it's paved the way for so many young players that are, say, of Puerto Rican descent, that are Dominican, that are Cuban, Venezuelan, you name it. It has been nothing short of a tremendous thing. So while Roberto has been long gone, his legacy will continue to live on forever, and I greatly appreciate that as a baseball fan. And to continue on, everybody, on Roberto Clemente, rocking that number 21, Lindor smacks, not a doubt, his 27th home run of the season, everybody. That is 104 miles per hour off the bat, 382 feet. And just like that, everybody, the Mets are now back up by 5 runs. They're now up a total here that we would see 6-1, as a matter of fact, everybody. So it's a 6-1 Mets lead here just in the first couple innings. And the Polar Bear says, it's my turn. You think I'm not going to hit a bomb? Of course I am. Pete Alonso, after 2 outs here in the inning, he hits himself his 35th home run this season. Still trailing Juan Soto, though, by 5, which is crazy to say, everybody. Who had heading into 2025 that Juan Soto would be the Mets home run leader? It's not overly shocking, but it just shows that Alonso, more of what we got last regular season, is kind of going to be a continuation of what Pete's going to be. I think we have, unfortunately, went away from the days of Alonso being a clear lock of a 45, 50 home run hitter. He's not that guy. But what he still is most certainly a great home run hitter that can give you at minimum 30 to 40 every single season. And he's still on pace to hopefully give us north of 40 home runs this series, just 5 away, as he absolutely demolished that baseball off of Michael Cain here that we saw 437 feet, 113 miles per hour off the bat. And that made it a 7-1 Metropolitan lead here, as we would then head into the 3rd inning. In the 3rd, Jay Cronenworth smacks himself a bomb himself. It's his 11th home run of the year. Croney, who I actually had the privilege of meeting in San Diego back in 2023 with my guy Borda, because he's actually good buddies with him. Shout out to Croney. I got no ill will with the guy. I just didn't appreciate him hitting a home run off my Mets today. And that's what happens when Clay Holmes serves a meatball 91 miles per hour middle. What do you think's going to happen? And yeah, I liked what we got from Clay today, but these kind of pitches will continue and always be, in my humble opinion, inexcusable. You just cannot do that to today's hitters. Like, they're not going to miss much. Even a Cronenworth, who's not known for the home run galore. And look, he easily hits his 11th home run this season, just like that. Middle, when you're throwing meatballs, when you have no gas, when you have no movement, it's going to get demolished. It's as simple as that. That's what you guys see right there beside me. But regardless, Clay Holmes giving up that home run would thankfully be the final home run that we would actually see Clay give up today, because he would go 4 rock solid innings for this Mets team, all things considered. Because afterwards, in the bottom of the 3rd, the Mets go down in order. In the 4th inning, the final inning today of Clay Holmes, he would give up a 2-out double to Ramon Laureano, who had a double play ball his last time out there. But Jack Smurl would strike out swinging. That does it for Clay Holmes' final line today, everybody. We're going to break down more on Clay once we break down Sean's day as well. I'm going to lump them together the same way that the Mets decided to lump them together today, and what I thought was a really, really rock-solid tandem. As I realized my one earring, my little hoop there, was a little too loose. It was like hanging on by a thread. I apologize for that, everybody. I know some of you guys don't like the piercings, don't like the hoops and stuff. This is just part of who I am. I've been rocking earrings as well, literally since I was going back to, late middle school, early high school. It's part of my norm, regardless of what I'm doing or like what professional setting I'm in. That's always kind of been a constant. So hope you guys don't all hate him. If you do, that's okay too, because it ain't going to phase me. We're going to continue to roll with the punches here. As we get to the bottom of the 4th inning, everybody, who hits his 17th home run of the year? Who hits their 2nd home run as a New York Met? Who hits their 1st home run at Citi Field in their career? It is, yes, you guessed it, Cedric Mother effing Mullins. And when I saw that bomb, I said, get out of here, bomb, get out of here. And it did. 388 feet, 102 off the bat there for Cedi, and that makes it a 8-2 ball game. That, my friends, is how you knew how much Michael Keane was struggling today, because Cedric Mullins has not even been able to hit much of a beach ball against right-handers this year, and he goes down and he gets it. This was not a small home run. Yes, it was under 400 feet, but the way that he hit this home run was all the more impressive. This was not a meatball down the pipe. No! Take a look at it with me, everybody. That is a changeup down below, just out of the zone, and he reaches and he pokes and he absolutely blasts that one to right. That would be his 17th home run of the season. The Mets are now up back 6 runs in this ball game, everybody. 8-2, almost the final score of this ball game, but a great start here for this Mets team throughout their first 4 to 5 innings. That makes it an 8-2 lead for the Metsies. As we continue on, we would see nothing else happen. Then Sean Manaea comes in and he would take on the 5th inning throughout the remainder of the ball game. Sean Manaea in the 5th. What do we see right away? He gets a 1-2-3, strikes out Ryan O'Hearn the first batter he faces. Then he gets a ground on a Jay Cronenworth, a ground on a Freddie Furman, and that will do it there for the 5th. In the bottom of the 5th, it's a 1-2-3 for the Mets. They were actually struck out by the side. So great work there by the Padres, crazy enough there. And that would be all thanks to Mr. Hart, who came in and dominated this Mets team. He went 2 perfect innings for the most part, had 5 strikeouts, was 1 strikeout shy of striking out every single batter he faced for the Mets in relief. He was nasty. Thankfully, he didn't start this ball game for the Padres, obviously. In the top of the sixth, Sean Manaea does allow a 2-out single to Manny Machado, but that's all she wrote because he works out of that unscathed. In the bottom of the sixth, the Mets do nothing outside of getting a couple walks that we saw on Hart. Juan Soto, unfortunately, would strike out on a foul tip, and what was just not a good at-bat there for Soto. And it wasn't his only not great at-bat today. Soto had another bad at-bat later on this ball game. But before we got there, in the top of the seventh, another 1-2-3 for Sean Manaea today, who just had it. He looked good. The velo looked solid with Manaea. He was attacking the zone well, getting the swing and misses. He was actually getting the whiffs that he otherwise hasn't been getting at all previously this season. So clearly there was a proper adjustment made, and Sean Manaea being utilized out of this bullpen with that loose body in his elbow. We have been longing for this. We've been saying to either put him on the IL or to move him in the bullpen fashion. They went with the bullpen, and it worked here finally. Great to see. And I think it's fitting, guys, that Sean Manaea looked good in the bullpen today when the last time that Sean Manaea was utilized as a Mets reliever, he looked good as well. That goes back to, again, when he finished the ball game for Clay Holmes in Kansas City, where, yes, he did give up a run or two late in the ball game, but he was rock solid, all things considered. And for a guy that was first returning from injury, we weren't really complaining about it all that much then. And I remember this clearly because I was actually on my away trip. I was out west right as the Mets were getting set to wrap up their first half and get into the All-Star break. I was out west and I was doing these post-game live shows for you guys in a hotel bathroom like a madman because the grind never stops here in the platform no matter where Wardy is on this planet. As we continue on the bottom of the seventh, everybody, a 1-2-3 there for the Padres against the Mets. In the top of the eighth inning, everybody, we would see one long ball given up by Sean Manaea, and would be the fifth home run of the year for the now catcher for the San Diego Padres that they acquired at the trade deadline that I actually covered live on air in the Bleacher Report app and on Bleacher Report's YouTube channel during their active MLB trade deadline coverage day. I was covering 3 hours of their deadline coverage as a co-host with Kate Malascanco, and we had a great time. And I remember when this news happened, I'm like, oh, the Padres continue to add. First Mason Miller, then Ryan O'Hearn and Ramon Ariana. Now let's bring up some catching depth and Furman. And what did he do? He smacked himself a sweeper that just caught way too much of the plate for Sean Manaea in this instance. It was 75 miles per hour, a little down and in, but still way too much more middle. And he got all of that one. Because of that, that made it an 8-3 ball game. But as I mentioned earlier, and something I'm thankful for, it would stay 8-3 here in the ball game. Because as we continue on, we get ourselves to the bottom of the eighth inning. Francisco Alvarez exits this ball game, as we saw, as he was drilled there, unfortunately, right in the elbow. Again, I do believe Alvarez is okay, and I will double check to make sure that we have official word that he is okay. Should we get it from anywhere? I'm going to just see right now here if Mendy made a comment or Alvarez made a comment himself here. Let's take a look. Okay, Carlos Mendoza says that the Mets do not plan on doing any additional testing on Alvarez after he was hit by the pitch. Mendoza adds that Alvarez is sore, but the pitch avoided a vulnerable area. So thankfully, and for those that did not actually see the hit by pitch, I'll do a nice little demonstration for you real quick. Let me take a baseball to use without, being too bothered. I'm going to touch it just once, and that's that. Because unfortunately, all the baseballs I have by me are signed. Not that it's a bad thing, but just for the context of what happened here instead of just showing the actual clip. So when Alvarez got drilled, and we are going to use here my signed Darryl Strawberry World Series 1986 baseball, which is pretty sick. So I'm not going to touch the signature. I'm going to put it right back in the box. But as Alvarez was drilled, let's see him getting set for his swing, right? Focus on my arm here. Elbow area, especially this tattoo area. Yeah, shout out to 17-year-old Wardy who loved his snakes and roses, the most generic and basic thing imaginable. Neo-traditional right there for you. If you know, you know. He takes that drill and he takes it, bam, right back in this area right here. It wasn't fully on the elbow. It honestly looked like it hit a little bit more up here. But regardless, this is where we saw Alvarez get drilled for the most part. He didn't have any padding here, which really sucks. I really feel for him because this is an area where you do see guys have extensive padding, and he just didn't have it. It went all square right on the meat. So that's why he grimaced and was in extensive pain, like a lot of pain right away. And he exited this ball game. The Mets, rightfully so, were pissed off. I don't blame them. I was pissed off. Going back to 2022, remember the moments that we would have of Buck Showalter, we're all zooming in on his face and his reactions to the constant hit by pitches. That's kind of how I felt there. Again, I was seeing red. I wish I was at Citi Field so I could run on the field and do something about it myself. Obviously, I'm joking here, but the point stands. Alvarez just had such a terrible luck of the draw this season. That held true yet again with that hit by pitch. Thankfully, though, Alvarez looks like he will be okay from what I just relayed from Mets skipper and Carlos Mendoza himself. In the bottom of the 8th inning, though, that deaded Cedric Mullins was called out on strikes, but at least said he had himself his big bomb today. We'll take that little victory for what it is. As we got to the 9th inning, here it comes, and here comes the final outs. Hayden Senger's catching, and Sean Manaea, the Simone Southpaw, to stay in the ball game. No Edwin Diaz today after the off day. Nope, we're going Sean Manaea for the full 5 innings. Let's see what he can do, and he thrives. Sean Manaea strikes out Gavin Sheets without a problem. He strikes out Ramon Laureano. He gives up a 2-out double to Jackson Merrill, who hit a home run earlier in this ball game, but it didn't matter. He flies out Ryan O'Hearn first or second pitch, and that does it for the ball game. The Mets go on to win this one 8-3. They out hit the Padres 10-7. The Mets expected batting average in this ball game per Baseball Savant was 268 to 262 of the Padres, so they were pretty neck and neck. And when getting into the actual exit velos, who have the hardest hit baseballs today, everybody, for the Mets at least, because funny enough, the hardest hit baseballs, let's see if the Mets were the leaders or the Padres. It was a combination of both, and the hardest hit baseball by the Mets today was Pete Alonso's home run, 113 miles per hour, tops out the list. Then not long before, funny enough, were the other biggest barrel baseballs by the Padres, 112 of a double from Laureano, and then 109 off the bat of Cronenworth on that meatball of a 91 middle by Clay Holmes. Then you get Brandon Nimmo, who smoked a single 109 miles per hour today. Damn, that would have been nice if that was more than a single, obviously. Beatty with his home run, 108 off the bat. Beatty's hit career highs this year for the Mets when it comes to not only, velocity of exit velo as well as length, how far he's hitting a baseball when looking at the distance. Vientos, wow, that's actually crazy. Vientos' double play ball that went right back to Michael Cain in the first inning was 106 off the bat. So it's honestly even more impressive that Cain was able to make that play and react as quick as he did and have that turnaround time. So that's what you got on the key exit velos for the Mets and their offense today. This was the Mets offense in general today, everybody. There was a lot to love, a lot to like about this one. Like I said, they came to play, and they also stepped up today for the first time, what feels like in forever, with runners in scoring position. You know that stat where the Mets dominated in the month of August? That Eric Chavez has high horse talking social media every day. I'm like, statisticians, listen up to this one now, because we actually have something to be positive about, a rally around. Well, that held true finally. After a Mets team that scuffled, that's dragged their feet in the month of September, their first 2 weeks, they finally have stepped up now over the past 48 hours worth of baseball games. Today, what we see, Lindor, a multi a game there with all of his kiddos and wifey in attendance, obviously. 265 average, 794 OPS. Soto today. Didn't love Soto's at-bats today. Not the end of the world. Just didn't love him. Still went 1 for 4. Had that single up the middle that started the ball game. 262 average, 918 OPS. Alonso, home run, multi a game. 268 average, 858 OPS. Nemo, multi a game. Oppo RBI, love to see it. 262 average, 767 OPS. Vientos, a rare over for Mark because he's been hitting much better that we have seen. He went over, still has a 237 average, 720 OPS. McNeil, 2 RBIs today. Love McHits with the RBI, with the 2-run double down the first baseline for McDoubles. 255 average, 778 OPS. Acuna came in as a late game defensive replacement, which is why you see him on the graphic there. It's just live automated from how the game finished, not how it started there lineup wise. He has a 234 average and a 561 OPS. Brett Bonds Beatty, as I love to call him after every single time he hits a home run. Hi, Pat. Happy to have you in here, baby. Appreciate you and your great membership. As we continue on, everybody, Beatty with the home run, a couple RBIs, 254 average, 752 OPS. Don't look now, everybody, but Brett Beatty may really F around and finish this season with 20 home runs. He's 3 away. Question, everybody watching live on a replay, is as follows. Will Brett Beatty hit the 20 home run plateau before the season ends? He's got like 11 games to work with. You guys let me know live and on replay if you think Beatty will get there or not. I'd love to know your thoughts. As we continue here, Alvarez, over 255 average, 766 OPS. Sanger, 181 average, 415 OPS. Let's see, Mullins, 1 for 4 there that we saw with the RBI, 220 average, 703 OPS. That's what you got from this Mets offense, and as I mentioned, 4 for 7 with runners in scoring position tonight, and they left 4 on base. Now let's get to the pitching, everybody. I told you I was looking forward to breaking down the pitching today because I really am. looking forward to breaking down the pitching. Some of you guys think that he's going to get to 20 home runs. I love that. Beatty's stats since the All-Star break, according to PB9, great member in the chat. Thank you, PB. 297 at-bats or so. And you're looking at the batting average. My mistake. A 297 batting average and 870 OPS. That's really good for Brett Beatty post All-Star break. Like I said, second half, Brett Beatty has been really good, really rock solid. Far from the Mets issues that we've had offensively and defensively for the most part. Yes, he's had some defensive blunders, few and far in between, but nothing that you're, hanging your head on and saying, oh no, Brett Beatty's out there playing defense. Piggyback is right, JTB. It worked in the Mets' favor today. Michael Stroh, how we doing, baby? Great member in here. And when we break down what worked for the Mets today, when taking a look at both these pitchers' arsenals, let's begin here with Clay Day, Mr. Clay Holmes. Again, Clay wasn't brilliant. He just did what he needed to do across 4 innings. And I'm glad that we pulled the plug on him after 4 innings. I'm even more glad that they said, F it, let's go Manaea ninth inning today. Let's save this bullpen because it worked. Clay Holmes, 43% of the arsenal in which he threw a sinker today. Topped out 96, sat 94, and had right around 2,100 on the average of spin rate. His slider, he threw 21% today. Topped out 88, sat right around 86, and was sitting right around 2,700 on his spin rate. The sweeper, 17% of Clay Holmes' arsenal today. Topped out right around 84, sat 83, and was at 28 to 2,900 on the spin rate. The changeup at 9% of his arsenal, topped out 91, sat right around 90, and was right around 1,000 on the spin rate. The four-seam fastball that he threw the least, rightfully so, because it's a meatball, eerily similar to Brandon Sproat. Brandon might have velocity, but he doesn't have good shape in his fastball, which is why Sproat's deferred to his fastball as his 4th or 5th pitch in his arsenal. I've loved everything about Brandon's usage of his pitches. Equally, I've liked what we saw from Clay today. I would have liked maybe a little less sinker usage, a little bit more variation if he had trust in the slider and sweeper. Obviously, he did only to varying degrees, but still the four-seam looked good. Topped out 94, sat right around 92. Just don't throw it middle. Common sense, right? Right around a 2,000 on the RPM. So that's what you got in Clay Holmes today, everybody. The Giants are winning 5-3 against the Diamondbacks. I don't love that, but at the same time, one of them has to lose, right? So it's kind of a flip-flop as to how much do we really care if it's the Giants or the Diamondbacks winning. Either one that wins is going to gain ground and get closer to the Mets in the 3rd wild card. So if the Diamondbacks lose today, I'm happy about that, but I'm not happy about the Giants winning. Both things can be true at the same time. The same way as we get into the pitching, how both things can be true and both pitchers performing well today. Clay Holmes was solid and Manaea was even better. And he was a simple man. And no, this is not a Jacob deGrom simple man entrance reference. This is a reference to nothing. It's just talking about a 3-pitch mix in Manaea today. He didn't throw the kitchen sink. He didn't give you 6 pitches. He gave you 3. He gave you more of that reliever arsenal that you expect. Headlined by a 4-seam fastball. Notable, the 4-seam fastball that we saw today, because that 4-seam usage, knowing the arm slot change, how is that going to work? And it worked out well that we saw. 72% of the time he threw it that we saw. Topped out 93, sat right around 92. Again, the velo has not been there for Manaea this year at all. Longer the days that we saw a guy like Manaea touching mid to high 90s last year at some points. Like when Sean was really getting going in the second half, he was looking awesome. Unfortunately, the velo isn't there for Sean this season, so he has to compensate by being pinpoint accurate as well as really doing well with his off-speed and breaking pitches. And his sweeper, he threw 25% of the time, topped out 80, sat right around 77, and had a 2,200 spin rate. In comparison, his 4-seam fastball was sitting right around 2,100. The changeup he threw just twice today, topped at 85, sat 85, and was at 1,500 on the spin rate. A collective grade that I'm going to give this Mets pitching staff today, because I'm not going to just grade Holmes or Manaea. From Clay Holmes looking solid over 4, and Manaea looking even better over 5. 3 total earned runs allowed across 9 innings, where they gave up a total of 7 hits, 1 walk, and had 6 strikeouts. That, in my opinion, gets an easy, no doubt in my mind, we're going to go with a comfortable 8 out of 10 for the Mets pitching today. I was really encouraged with this pitching staff, and I was debating between 7.5 and 8, but knowing that this is the first time in months that Manaea was thrown the bullpen, this was not an easy task for him to handle in the sense of how would he adjust. Now, as we know, Sean Manaea is someone who has been utilized in not only piggyback circumstances by the Mets that we saw against the Royals at the end of the first half, but we also saw Sean Manaea famously utilized as a kind of swingman type starter reliever for the San Francisco Giants the year before he signed with the Mets. The year before that, he was with the San Diego Padres, where he was deferred from starter to bullpen because he struggled so much down the stretch, including postseason play for that Padres team after they beat our Mets in the 2022 wild card. So Padres fans don't love Sean Manaea because Sean openly spoke to the media that offseason and said out basically, he kind of, didn't care. Like, there was a lack of care with someone like Sean with how he pitched. And I think it went in hand with him being comfortable half the year pitching at Petco Park. I'm sorry, if you guys haven't been to San Diego, you got to go at some point. It's very easy to get comfortable there and not want to necessarily put your best foot forward effort-wise because it's so comfortable there in San Diego. Every day it's 70 degrees and sunny. It's perfect. So nice. I wish we had that there on the East Coast. We don't. But some players appreciate that for the better, and some players appreciate that so much that actually hurts their game. And I think Sean actually fell in that regard. Do your homework on that in case you guys don't know what I'm referring to. Padres fans know plenty, and that's why they're not big Sean Manaea fans going back to 2022 or so. Point stands. Sean Manaea, since making that arm slot change, he looked awesome in the second half last year. This year, he's been batting practice for the majority of the time that we've seen him out there. It is not an easy task, even with having previous success, to get thrown out there in the bullpen. Like what we saw with other guys, it doesn't always work, but for Sean, it did today. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this is a step in the right direction for Manaea and his game, because if he can continue to be utilized like this, the Mets finally have some stability with at least one of their rotation spots. And listen, as of now, if the Mets have playoffs, if playoffs start tomorrow, they're in the wild card. The Mets need at least 3 starters set up, and they do have that as of now. And that'll be Noel McLean, Brandon Sproat, and one of Clay Holmes or David Peterson. I think we could all agree we would probably prefer David Peterson, but the idea of a piggyback circumstance is why you don't hate the idea of Clay. David will be interesting. Tomorrow's going to be a massive test for David Peterson this season because Peterson has not been good the second half. He's had an ERA well over 4 over the past second half. He has not went deep into games nearly as consistently as he did the previous calendar year from June 2024, returning from his previous hip surgery to the now second half of this season. Since then, he hasn't been that same guy. Peterson has been hit hard. His expected numbers have really looked more like what you should be getting out of someone like him. The results haven't been there. So that is why tomorrow is a massive test to kind of see more of what they have in Peterson getting closer to postseason play. Because whether we like it or not, I think we can all agree, everybody, the Mets simply do not have much stability, comfortability right now in their rotation. Which is why it's as crazy as it is to state, it's true. The 2 most reliable starters in this Mets rotation are guys that started the year in the minor leagues, and Noel McLean and Brandon Sproat. Maybe Jonathan can get himself right this next turn in the order for the series finale against the Padres this Thursday, and he will take that next step in the right direction for this team. Until then, the Mets don't have much reliability. And that is why we have been longing for this piggyback circumstance. I don't say this to get on a high horse like, oh, listen to me, Wardy, I'm right about everything. I'm just being straight up front with you. We have been saying verbatim for the Mets to do this piggyback with a starter and another starter going all the way back to late June, early July. And the reason why we said it then goes in direct hand why we're saying it now. It was to get prepared for circumstances if your starters are continuing to labor. That way you can maximize the arms that you still had. And at this time, the Mets didn't even have as much ailments as they currently do, mind you. So the idea of considering some of the rookie right-handers, for instance, where maybe they wouldn't give you length, so why not utilize a veteran along with them? Which is why I'm really interested to see how Ton does in the series finale this week, and if the Mets defer to someone in a piggyback circumstance like that or not, or if Sean's kind of going to stay on a rotation rest, but he's still going to be utilized just as a reliever for Clay. That is something that is yet to be confirmed, so we'll wait to find out more confirmation from, say, Carlos Mendoza and a David Stearns. But for now, it worked, and we're going to take that for what it is. Let's see what the guys can do tomorrow now with David Stearns and Jonathan, because the piggybacking, something that we called for a while ago, made endless sense in the sense of if you have 2 or more struggling starters that look good in sample sizes of 2, 3 tops, 4 innings, but as soon as they face the second or third turn in the order, they become batting practice. That's how you limit the damage. It's by taking advantage of having bunch of starters, not a lot great when it comes to quality, giving you length, but they can give you some level of quantity. The Mets are now finally starting to realize that. I think that they waited way too long on this. I've said this plenty, but I'm not going to sit here and be on a high horse of, shoulda, coulda, what is, because it's happened already. It is what it is. They've learned from it finally, and they're using that for the better moving forward. So all I can hope for moving forward for this Mets team is that we see more positive production from this kind of format should they wish to go down it. Because when you look at the total starter options the Mets currently have, it is as follows, in no particular order. Noah McLean, Brandon Sproat, Jonathan, David Peterson, Clay Holmes, and then you're going to get Kodai Senga, because Senga will get one more start in AAA, and then he will be back up with this Mets team. When that happens, the Mets will then have 6 starters to rotate, and they're likely not going to stay with a 6-man rotation. It makes far more sense, at least at the time of us talking now on September 16th, in my opinion. I'm curious if you guys disagree. This is just where I stand here. I think it makes far more sense to go with a 5-man rotation, and your starters that are struggling most, make sure that they're in piggyback circumstances, because you know that you really don't have any other options at this point, right? The Mets are not going to rush up a Jonathan Santucci. The Mets are not going to, skyrocket a Will Watson right now. They're not going to go the lengths to bring up more pitching prospects than what they already have for help on the rotation front. Knowing that, and knowing that they really don't have any other immediate solution with the exception of Kodai Senga, knowing that Tyler McGill likely needs reconstructive Tommy John surgery or something along those lines as he's seeking second, third, fourth opinions, however many he's trying to get on his elbow right now, you realize that the Mets don't have a lot of options. So they have to maximize what they currently do have. And that is why, going back to a couple months ago, this is what I felt was a priority, because if they could kind of get on top of this early, then it will make the transition easier. It'll make their season hopefully go easier, and it'll further equip and prepare them for postseason play. Because what do you think the Mets are going to do here should they have the wild card? Should they crack it and should playoffs start? What they are going to do is eerily similar to what we just saw today. They will be going in piggyback circumstances. They will have a quality starter for 4, 5, 6 innings, and then another starter for anywhere from 2 to 4 innings of relief, if not more. And it makes sense why they're doing that now. Obviously, it would have made sense to do it a while ago, but now that they're doing it, you just got to hope that this continues a trend in the right direction. So that is what you're getting from the Mets piggyback situation. That is what happened today in a nutshell, what we can kind of expect moving forward. JT with a $5 donation. Thank you, JT. If you guys haven't already, please make sure to continue to hit that like and subscribe button on your way, and I greatly appreciate that. Help us get to our next short-term goal here on the platform with 35,000 subscribers, as well as letting me know all your thoughts, reactions, and analysis in tonight's comments. Thank you guys kindly for that. JT with a $5 holla. Went to San Diego to watch the Mets in July. Worst baseball they played all year. Nicest weather I've ever experienced. So that's the point. When I went to San Diego for the first time in 2023, I went there again this, that's a lie. I did not go this summer. I went to LA this summer. Great weather, but not the same environment. We all know that. Even with Beverly Hills having its perks among other things. San Diego, when I was there, the Mets lost the series 2 games out of 3, but my San Diego story is something that I will always take great pride in, because I purposely did not speak on this in the year that it happened, because the year that it happened, if I'm not mistaken, was the same year that this man also, if not the year prior, had, pardon my French, kiddos, I'm going to say the B word in a second because it's fitting here. Jock Peterson got bitch slapped by Tommy Pham pregame and the Cincinnati outfield. And I want to say maybe it was 2022 season, if not 2023, slapped across the face pregame for a fantasy football dispute that they had from a year prior. From that point on, I told myself I wasn't going to air anything out that I knew about Tommy, even if it was good, just because I wasn't going to kind of do it for the sake of doing it. Well, multiple years have passed. I've said this story before, and I'll say it again. I have a fun little story in regards to Tommy Pham that I take pride in because I think it's fitting. For those that don't know, Tommy Pham was tragically stabbed numerous times outside of a club in San Diego during his time as a San Diego Padre. And the stabbing was so egregious and so bad that the fact that he actually continued his major league career, made full recovery, is nothing short of a miracle. He'll be the first to tell you that. He was stabbed significantly in his lower back, and it looked really, really bad. It was graphic imaging through TMZ at the time. And it was over some type of dispute. And you know how Tommy is. For those that don't know Tommy, he's a straight shooter. He's going to tell you how it is. He's not going to hold anything back. Tommy grew up in an environment in which that was normal for him. He did not grow up with the greatest, I don't want to say greatest upbringing, but he had a lot of hardship growing up. And he's been very open and honest about this, which is why he's wired the way that he is. Tommy Pham is the only player you will ever meet that records himself, an active recording with the media member, to make sure that they do not misquote him, which I think is very interesting and honestly somewhat admirable, because a lot of people will, say a lot of things and not realize what they say and then act surprised as to how is this blowing up. He goes out of his way to make sure that even if you disagree with what he says, or even if what he says makes no sense, like his latest feud as a Pirate this year, he's going to make sure that he knows to a T what he's saying. And the same way that we saw him in San Diego as a Padre hanging out at the clubs is the same way that he did during his time as a New York Met. In the summer of 2023, and the series in which the Mets were in San Diego against those Padres, Tommy Pham went back to his own stomping ground and did the exact same thing that he did during his time as a Padre. And he would hang out post-game at the Gaslamp District area, in which there is an abundance of clubs. They're a lot of fun for those that have not been there. I've been there. It's a lot of fun that I did over the nights that I was covering that Mets series with my guy Borna. And we went to, I believe American Junction is one of the club names there, or American Junkie, one of the two. We called it Junk for short. I'm just trying to remember which one it was fully. Either way, we're hanging out. We're having a good time. I'm being transparent. I'm having a couple drinks. I'm feeling loose. I'm feeling myself. We're just having fun. That's all we're doing. Just having a nice, fun night there at a San Diego club. Who do I see in the corner of my eye get announced by some bottle girls? It is the one and only Tommy Pham. Tommy is there in a buttoned-up shirt, looking like he's ready for school. It was a really interesting fit. I'm not even gonna lie. It was kind of, I was kind of taken back by it. He's in there in the club. He's sitting in the corner. He's with his little posse that he's got. And all Tommy's doing is just chilling and mean mugging the entire time. I never saw someone waltz in a club before just to mean mug and do nothing. Like, some people were chatting up with him. He was having some low-key nonchalant conversation. But from what I gathered from what my point of view, my tipsy point of view, was that Tommy was there doing everything but what felt like having a good time. And I said to myself, as a Mets fan, knowing that I love Tommy Pham, knowing that I love how unhinged he is, I got to get my ass up and go talk to him. So that's what I did. I stepped right up right away. The Reds lost. Love to see that. The Mets gained more ground, the wild card against them. Shout out to the Reds for losing today. We appreciate that. Shout out to the St. Louis Cardinals for stepping up, even after selling that bum Ryan Helsley to us post-trade deadline. Now, back to the point here. I go up. There are booths and there are poles in between the booths that people would either dance on or just grab and stand through. I step on the booth. I step on the little platform in between these booths, and I waltz my little butt over all the way to Tommy Pham. His security's there. I dodge his security. I do a nice little swift left, and my short ass on, mind you, a night where you can't see a lot in the club, lights are flashing everywhere, not clear sight. I was able to take advantage of that, and my smallness, that is me. And I go up to Tommy, and I just go up right to him, give him a firm handshake. He, of course, had a big grip, and he didn't give me really a smirk, smile, or anything. He was just kind of like, what the hell, who are you? I said, Tommy, big fan, been covering you for a while, wishing you all the best this season. That's about that. And that's all it was of an interaction, but it's always a fun story that I like to share, because when I think of Tommy Pham and the circumstance of, the last thing we knew about him publicly in the clubs in San Diego was something something crazy. And Buddy's back there without a problem. I commend him for it. He doesn't give two shits. It's Tommy Pham's way or the highway, as they like to say out here. So that's my little Tommy Pham story for you. That's the only thing I got with meeting a player that was outside of a baseball setting that was kind of out of pocket. All the others I met have been, fun little easy conversations with Jose Siri earlier this year in Beverly Hills, grabbing coffee with his girl or wifey, as well as Jose Quintana that I bumped into at a first watch at spring training a couple years ago in Florida, Port St. Lucie. But that's all I got in regards to the fun little stories. So now it is time for me to defer to all you guys, the hundreds of you guys watching live on a replay, to see what you guys have to say in regards to this Mets victory tonight, as well as what the Mets have going forward. Let's see. He was not interested. Oh, no, not at all. But that's okay, though. If I'm being frank, I think the last thing that Tommy Pham probably wanted was a guy like me who covers a team, who I didn't really emphasize a lot. I just reiterate that, I've covered him, to be in that setting along with him. I think that's where the players naturally don't want someone like myself to be at. And I don't blame them for feeling that way, right? Because it's almost like I don't know if conflict of interest is the right word, but it doesn't make sense in the great scheme of things because, you know, I could have been an asshole right away and like put him on blast. It was like, oh, Tommy Pham's out clubbing tonight, guys. If you're in San Diego in the area, go catch him. Like, I'm not going to act like that, obviously, because that's only what an ass would do. Pardon my French. But let's get to answering these comments, questions, and concerns. Now, whatever you guys got from me, I appreciate it. To everyone watching live at a replay, please let me know your biggest takeaways from tonight's 8-3 victory for the New York Mets. What you liked most about it, what you didn't like most. Headlined by a Mets offense that was early, and thankfully it was enough in this big 5-run breakout in the first. And the pitching staff, headlined by Clay Holmes and Manaea, that most certainly got the job done. Let's consider answering these comments now. Everybody watching replay, thank you so much for hitting those buttons on your way in and on your way out. This is your guy Wardy, as always, signing out. Let's go Mets, baby.